Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm excited to be here to talk to you a little bit about my experiences with chemo and using the cold cap for the first time. Spoiler alert, it was not great. You'll notice that a lot has changed since the last time I did a video. I have no hair. So yeah, spoiler alert, the cooling cap was not for me. It did not work the way I was hoping it would. Before we get into it, let me just apologize for not uploading in so long and so many months. I have had so many delays, and it's been a bad couple of months. Chemo started in May 2022. It is now October 2022, and my last chemo session is actually tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. I have absolutely been way too drained, exhausted, tired, fatigued. I haven't had the energy to even think about doing a recording, let alone trying to do the editing and everything that goes along with it. It could be months until I actually have the energy to edit this video and give this, to the world. So let's talk about day one of chemo, going back several months now to the first day. It was not what I expected. What started as a little bit of anxiety and nerves, not knowing what to expect going in, ended up in a full-blown massive panic attack, bigger than any I've ever had before in my life. And it ended with the nurses having to give me a calming medication in order for me to relax enough and get out of my anxiety attack so I could actually go home. It was not a good day. So I went into the first day of chemo. My partner, Matt, came with me. And I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, they told me in theory what to expect, but I really didn't know what to expect. Essentially, they told me that there was going to be 30 minutes of cooling cap and pills that I had to take and absorb into my system. And then it was going to be about 60 minutes of the actual chemo treatment. And then 90 minutes of quote unquote cool down, which is essentially gives the cooling cap on your head, stays there, keeps your scalp cool while your body absorbs all the chemicals and toxins they've just pushed into you. And then they'll remove the cooling cap. So that's a long time. It's about a 3 to 4 hour experience with the cooling cap. So Matt came and sat with me. They put me in this corner chair in the room. I walked into this big room and there's just rows and rows. There's 4 rows of chairs with chemo patients plugged into their machines. And this one was in this weird corner spot where I hate to say it felt like everyone could see me or from their angles of where they were, where the other areas weren't quite so front and center. And this was the only chair that didn't have a curtain that you could wrap around in case you wanted some privacy. And I realized in retrospect that they had to put it there because of the cooling cap machine, which was kind of big and behind it. But that was one of the first things. There was no curtains. All the other stations had curtains. Mine did not. So then they get everything ready. They give me a bunch of pills and they put the cooling cap on. They had it all fitted. Everything was fine. They get it all fitted and then they plugged it in. The moment they plugged the cooling cap in and the cold, icy water went into the scalp was just immediate shooting pains into my scalp. It felt like knives, a million knives entering my scalp. And I started tearing up and I'm just like, oh my God, what's going on? And the nurse told me, yes, it's a shock. Breathe through it. You'll get used to it in 20 to 30 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. I've dealt with pain before. I can handle pain. I've got a very high pain tolerance. We're going to make this happen. So I waited and I was like, I'm going to get used to this. It will be fine. So about 30 minutes in, Matt actually left. He had to go deal with work and then it was just me. And they plugged me in and started doing the actual chemo treatments into my port. And admittedly, I was so distracted by the pain in my scalp. I wasn't paying attention to what they were putting in me or what the chemicals were or what any of it. I was paying attention to none of it except for this horrible knives in my scalp pain that I was dealing with. And that's all I could think about. But as soon as they started the drugs, I immediately felt tired. So this was the AC chemo. I don't know if I'll pronounce this right, but I believe it's Adriamycin and Cytoxan is how you say it. But we're going to just call it AC chemo for simplicity's sake. I immediately felt tired. I was so exhausted the moment these chemicals went inside me. And yet I'm so distracted by this scalp pain as well. My body just wanted to go to sleep and collapse because of what they were putting inside me. From there, I essentially just tried to get comfortable. I tried adjusting blankets. They were so nice. They gave me heated blankets. And given that my head was freezing, I mean, that was great. But then I couldn't get comfortable. I tried to put my head down, but the moment my head would touch the back of the chair or the side of the chair, shooting pains worse than before would just shoot into the side. So I couldn't put my head down. And yet my head felt so tired. I felt so heavy and just so fatigued. And so I kept laying my head down, and yet I would have to bounce it back up because it hurt so much. Tried to lean my head forward, but that wasn't comfortable. I couldn't get comfortable. And I felt so conspicuous. It felt like everyone could see me. And I just want to put you in my shoes for a second. I already had a little bit of anxiety coming in. First day of chemo, I think that's pretty normal. I was very anxious. And then we add in the pain. And I normally consider myself to deal with pain very well. But this pain was the worst pain I've ever subjected to myself voluntarily, ever. And it was so bad. It was so bad. And I just felt so conspicuous every time I moved, and I'm adjusting and I'm trying to get comfortable. And it just felt like everyone could see me. And every time I would bob my head up, it just felt like somebody over here is looking at me. Oh, somebody's over here is looking at me. Everyone else is just so calm getting their infusions done. And here I am. My anxiety is building. I can't get comfortable to save my life. It was so nerve-wracking. Essentially what happened is that the pain in my head wasn't getting better. I call BS on anyone saying you get used to it, but maybe I'm just sensitive more than most. But the anxiety is building. I feel like people are watching me. My eyes are tearing up from the pain. I'm counting down the minutes until the chemo is done. And I'm going, okay, they said the chemo is going to be 60 minutes. Just counting down, counting down. They finally tell me that the AC chemo is done. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rip this thing off my head and leave. I forgot about the 90-minute cool down. The nurse tells me there is 90 more minutes to return my scalp to room temperature and before I can remove the cap. I am so overwhelmed. And that is when this anxiety that had been building just went into a full-blown attack. I tried to tell the nurse that the cooling cap hurt too much to continue, and I literally couldn't get the words out. I was looking at this woman directly in her eyes, and I'm trying to say, the cap, I can't do it. 90 more minutes, I can't do it. I need to be done. I couldn't say anything. My brain is starting to panic because I can't communicate. On top of everything else going on and feeling like I'm the center of the world, people are staring at me, I'm having a freak out. I can tell I'm having a freak out. And I cannot talk. It was so overwhelming. I could not communicate. The nurse was so calm. I'm sitting there and my hands are moving and my mouth is moving, but I can't seem to get words out. I finally just pointed at my head, and this woman is amazing. She understood. She goes, "You want to take the cap off?" And I just nodded. Yes, I need to take the cap off. The nurse was great. She says, "Okay, well, just want you to know this means that, we're not going to be able to do the full treatment, and the chemicals are going to get to your scalp." And I just nod. That's okay. The nurse takes the cap off and the pain goes away, but the anxiety feeling that I'm experiencing doesn't subside. I am just, again, I'm in a full-blown anxiety attack, bigger than anything I've ever experienced before in my entire life. So then I try to text Matt and tell him that we're done and I need to go home, which wasn't really true. I still had to do some extra fluids and other things before I could go home, but I didn't realize that. But I tried to tell him, I'm ready to go. They took the cap off, they tried to go, and I cannot text. I am shaking. As I'm going like this, I'm trying to text, and I'm going like this at the screen, and I can barely get the words out. I finally get a message out saying, come get me. But then they won't let me leave. They take my blood pressure. They say that I need to calm down before I'm allowed to go home. I don't even know what my blood pressure was, but it was probably through the roof. Matt came in and he's told me that I looked like just an absolute mess when he walked in, but he has yet to actually explain what I looked like. I don't really remember anything else aside from Matt walking in and them telling me that I can't go home yet. I vaguely recall them saying that they were going to give me some medication to help me relax so that I could go home. And then I woke up several hours later. From what I gather, and from what I was told, I was panicking so much that they had to give me a sedative to calm down. And once I had that sedative, Matt was able to get me safely into the car and home into bed. That night, I got home around 1 p.m. I slept until about 7 p.m. He woke me up around 7 to eat some food, and then I went right back to bed, and I woke up at 10 a.m. the next day, so I slept about 15 hours straight after already sleeping 6 hours. I ate some more food, and then I slept the entire rest of Saturday. I ate some food on Sunday, and then I slept the entirety of Sunday. I did have to go to work Monday morning. I spent essentially the next 4 days, Monday through Thursday, in just a fog, a haze, desperately trying to work, trying to stay conscious enough to work, and taking naps throughout the day, and then going back to work, working some more, taking some naps, going back to work, and then just at the end of the day, just crashing and sleeping all night long. I was just so exhausted. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, completely non-functional. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was probably at, operating at like 60% functional. By Thursday night, I was starting to feel like my normal self at about a week after. It took about a week to really get my body back to normal status. And even then, I was still pretty tired for the following week. And so I was able to spend the first week would be just miserable. And then the second week was mostly back to normal so I could function and get some work done before I had to go to chemo again the following Friday. So the AC chemo was every 2 weeks on Friday. So anyways, that was my first ever chemo treatment. Wasn't great. In retrospect, I really do think that this horrible anxiety attack happened because of the combination of the lack of privacy, the pain. I distinctly remember thinking while the anxiety was building that I had no curtain. And I kept going back to, I have no curtain. There is no curtain that we can pull around and hide me. And this, what it felt very embarrassing when everyone else is so calm and stoic with their own personal treatments and infusions going on, and I'm having a freak out in the corner, and there was no privacy. And this is no fault of the hospital. They have curtains on almost every other station, but for whatever reason, my unlucky self got the one station without a curtain. In the last months, I've seen several other people have either freakouts or other issues happen, and their first response is to pull up the curtain and close it and protect people's privacy. But this one station I was at, of course, didn't have a curtain. And so not wanting people to see what I was going through and feeling very vulnerable and emotional, and I'm stuck to this chair because there's a tube coming out of my head, not my head, but coming out of the head thing attached to the chair. I had limited movement. I didn't feel like I could get away, and feeling so vulnerable, it just mounted. Everything just mounted on top of each other until I just broke into this massive anxiety attack. I've had anxiety attacks before, but they've always been very manageable. So manageable that you probably would not have even known I was having an anxiety attack because I've been able to control them so well. This was not one of those times. This was literally the worst feeling I've ever had, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's been 5 months since this happened, and when I was writing this up and writing notes about the day one, I was feeling my own anxiety build just thinking about it, and I'm feeling a little emotional right now even talking about it. That's how bad it was. And then I ended up talking to my therapist about it several times and kind of processing how vulnerable and emotional and traumatic that was that first day, that first experience. In looking at many of the cold cap platforms, most of the feedback from other users is that the discomfort or pain went away in 20 to 30 minutes. I don't know what's I don't know what's wrong with these people, but for me it was so painful, so painful. Or maybe I just have a really sensitive scalp. Like I said, I normally have a really high pain tolerance. This was not one of those times. This was awful. And so maybe I'm the weird one. And admittedly, I saw several people do the cold cap treatment while I was there, and they seemed to be doing just fine. So clearly this works for a lot of people. This did not work for me. And I just distinctly remember as I'm going through this pain going, my hair is not this freaking important. It's not this important. We will make the hair go away. I don't care. I do not want to deal with this pain ever again. Hair will grow back, and it will grow back. And you can see I've got little stubblies. I got a hairline for the first time, finally. And we're not even done with chemo, and yet my hair is starting to come back because it's not, the Taxol is not as bad for the scalp as the AC is, which is what made it fall out in the first place. So the hair will come back. It's not worth the pain to keep the hair. For anyone who wants to go through it, I hope that your scalp is not as sensitive as mine. I hope that you're able to bear it, especially if keeping the hair is important to you. But this was a really bad experience for me, and it was absolutely not worth it to keep my hair. I feel like I'm rambling a lot. It was, like I said, it was a really bad first experience. Admittedly, the nurses were wonderful. I don't think they realized how poorly I was feeling until I broke. And that's on me for not effectively communicating. I tend to have a really bad habit of just dealing with whatever bad situation I'm in and sucking it up until it gets so bad that I break. And that could be not necessarily this kind of anxiety attack break, but just in other ways. So that's on me for not effectively communicating what I was going through and that I needed support. But it was really bad. Yeah, I think I'm going to end this video for now. In my next video, I'll talk about the AC treatment in itself and kind of what that experience was without the cold cap and the different drugs that they use and how that experience felt. And like I said, this first one was an anomaly. Every other treatment after that was much, much better. Recovery, AC treatment as a whole was very unpleasant, but the cold cap just took it to another level. And with that in mind, I hope I see you at my next video. Thank you for listening in. Bye-bye.